Lord Glendenbrook, and I'm speaking to IrisTV.
Whichever way we voted for the winner, it came out on top. So when we tried a scientific method of scoring different points for different films, giving 3 to our top film, 2 to our second film, 1 point to our third film, it came out on top that way. It came out on top when we kind of voted for an individual film. It just kept rising to the top. A very powerful film, great performances from a young cast, very confidently directed. And just packed a real emotional punch. But most surprisingly of all, despite the kind of familiar territory of the Young Offenders Institute, it still actually contained this intimate, genuinely romantic story, which I think was a surprise, was original, and which was something which we hadn't necessarily seen before, even in films like Scum, even in Jean Genet writing. We hadn't seen something intimate in that exact environment, and so it really stood out, and I think we were all confident that that should be the winning film. Stable for Disabled Horses, which won the Best UK Short, was a real standout for me amongst all of the UK entries. It hinges on a great central performance by both of the two actors in it. But it's a combination of great timing, good writing, and what really stood out for me was the balance between comedy and pathos, and the switch between the two. So that what starts as a very funny comedy film with some great lines in it and some really good comedy acting, it turns into something a lot deeper and a lot more emotional successfully, without appearing schmaltzy, without being kind of too mawkish or whatever. I think it worked really well. And it's certainly a film where I'd like to see another film by its director and another film with the lead actor, because both were, worked in great tandem together. So a brilliant short.
God, sorry, I'll just get these. Let's just get these out of the way. Just doing a bit of weightlifting before you got here. Do you work out at all?
I run and I do sit-ups.
So like, are you like rocking a 6-pack then, or?
Well, I only done it for 6 months. I got like 1 pack.
He's got 1 pack. This is just one of my magazines. What kind of like look do you think you're kind of going for? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's nice.
Although I have heard that like if you overdo it with the weights and stuff and all the protein shakes, then it can make your penis shrink up like a cocktail sausage.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah,
man.
or like small and brown and wrinkly. Just one of my magazines. It's just I read this sometimes when I'm trying to get to sleep. So.
One of the things that stood out this year is the overall quality of films. It made being on the jury and actually picking a single winner out of all these films, very difficult. And as a result, actually, there were several films that weren't then mentioned in the final kind of, in the winning film, and then the films that we commended. Reality Check, the Israeli film, I really loved. I thought it was featured 2 great performances from the young actresses in it. And I love the kind of backdrop of the Yitzhak Rabin assassination, which was used very sparingly without bashing us over the head with it. The symbolism of kind of thwarted ambition and thwarted dreams wasn't too explicit and it wasn't too heavy-handed. So that was one film that really, really stood out for me.
אני לא רואה. מה? אני לא רואה. זה היה חשיש מלבנון ואני לא רואה כלום.
אני לא רואה.
אבל מה קרה לך?
אני לא יודעת, אני לא רואה.
חכי פה רגע, אל תעשי, אני אלך לקרוא למישהו.
לא, סווטה, אל תעזבי אותי לבד.
אבל אני אקרא למישהו.
חכי, זה בטח יעבור תכף. סווטה? סווטה, את פה? הלכת?
Kowalski was a real kind of gem in the final program. I think we'd gone to some dark places, we'd gone to some dramatic places. To see something that was so celebratory, so bright without being lurid, that for me visually, from the point of view of cinematography, it was very, very bright, very, very crisp, but it wasn't lurid. It didn't kind of offend my eyes, so to speak. But the main thing about Kowalski, I think, actually, that the performance by the young actor in it was a real standout for the whole festival, feature films included. The young actor in it was absolutely amazing. He managed to be wry without being obnoxious. And the dynamic between him and his father was great. It was genuinely laugh out loud funny. And also kind of, yeah, it felt true. It felt very, very honest. So that was a real favourite amongst all of the jury. I think that was one that after we'd seen it, we were talking about for quite some time. Empty Streets was a film that packed a real punch, I think. It was another film from Australia. It was by Jaraguri, who came here in Iris Year 2. This was a film with a very brave central performance by its lead actress. It did the unexpected. There was never a point in the film where I knew exactly what was going to happen next. And it went to some really dark places. So it was exactly the kind of film that I think, being on the jury, that I was looking for, something that actually stayed with me for hours and kind of days following it. So yeah, a very, very brave film and one of my personal favourites.
How are you? Okay. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Another great film that unfortunately didn't kind of make it into our final deliberations was Ostia, which detailed the last hours of the film director Pasolini's life. I thought this was incredibly powerful. The way that the scenes of violence were directed, I mean, it sounds trite, but actually violence is very, very difficult to capture on film and to make it look convincing and to have an emotional impact on the audience. And this was a really, really, really powerful film. So yeah, it's probably the one short film that I would actually quite like to see developed into a feature, because I think there's enough material there to support that, because those last days and months of Pasolini's life are fascinating and there's a lot of material there.
Questa città è corrotta, Nino. I politici, la mafia, la chiesa, più guardo, più vedo. Ma anche la sinistra si sta autodistruggendo.
Devi prendere una pausa. Ti stai facendo dai nemici. Non cambierai nulla. Dovrai solo ammazzare.
La morte si avvicina, Nino. La sento vicina. L'ho sognato. Ma non morirò dolcemente come un vecchio nel sonno, no. Per protesta morirò martire col sesso di fuori per terra, il cazzini macchiato del mio seme e del mio sangue.
Another film that came up repeatedly in discussion, but then unfortunately just didn't quite make it then into the final levels of deliberation, was Prora, the Swiss film, which I think we all agreed was a beautiful looking film, very high production values, and was very gripping. The performances from the two young actors in that in particular stood out, and I think that's something that stood out generally this year, is actually the level of acting from some very young, kind of presumably inexperienced actors. We've seen intense performances.
Wir müssen in die andere Richtung. Nur mit Duschblock. Komm jetzt mal runter. Ah, putain, mais laisse-moi, espèce de pédale! Hey, fick dich, Mann!
A film that came out of nowhere right at the end of the festival, and I think it was the final film of the final program, was Hatch, which was an Austrian film, which I think took us all by surprise. I think by this point we had kind of certain prejudices in favour of some films, and then this just, for me, really blew me away. For me, it was a serious contender. I loved it. The drama in it managed to pack so much drama into 20 minutes. All of the four kind of central performances were great. Real pathos, real emotion in it, but quite understated as well. So yeah, it was a beautiful film, and it was kind of a shame that, it was a shame maybe that my feelings weren't shared by everyone else, but that's the very nature of a competition like this. But yeah, I thought Hatch was a brilliant film.
Wir haben es uns anders überlegt.